Welcome to the Always Rising podcast, a show where we talk about Christian values, entrepreneurship, faith-driven lifestyle, love, life, family, and all of the above. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Always Rising podcast. Today I'm so excited to have a new acquaintance and a new friend of mine, Lee Hyde, joining us this morning. So welcome to the show, Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. So I kind of was introduced through you through a mutual person that we both know, right? Kalon Smith, and he's my son's baseball coach over at Relentless. And
Yep.
I know you worked there, and he said, man, hey, I've been watching your show, and I have the perfect guy to come on.
Yeah.
And so you and I talked briefly a little bit about having you on, but what I'm most excited about this morning is the fact that we really don't know each other super well kind of at all. So I'm excited to get to know you and have this chance to have a conversation with you and, continue to grow that relationship.
Yeah, same. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So let's just start off, right, kind of at the beginning. Obviously, this is a faith-based podcast, entrepreneurial podcast. I know you spend quite a bit of time in both those worlds, but also the sports world, right, as our introduction. So tell the audience about you and what you do and who you are.
Yeah. Where do you want me to start, I guess?
Man, you could start at the beginning, right? You have a couple of options. You could start with your faith journey. You could start with life. Obviously, both of those typically seem to intertwine.
Yeah.
Start as early as you want, right, from day one, or as late as you want, right? So yeah, we just start there. You can tell us about yourself, your family, right? Just kind of, the audience really wants to know about you.
Okay, yeah. I'll start kind of back my childhood. I grew up in a Christian home. So my parents got divorced at an early age, but then my stepdad and my mom got married, grew up initially kind of in a Baptist church, and then my mom and my stepdad got together. He had a lot of Methodist pastors on his side of the family, so we started going to Methodist church. So just grew up in the church, so always kind of knew Jesus, was always introduced in my life, which was great. And I struggled for a long time because I felt like, people would share their testimony. They'd have these big testimonies, right? My life made this huge change. And I struggled with that for a long time. But then as I started to, dig deeper into the Sermon on the Mount, I realized that, my heart had just as big a change, maybe not, from the outside looking in, but from the inside looking out. And so, grew up in the church, really went on a camp when I was in middle school, and that's when I officially, gave my life to Christ, and started to make changes at that point. And my brother had some medical issues growing up, and, so there was a lot of times where, I'm really have to lean on my faith at an early age. Went to college, so went to Georgia Tech. So sports is big for me. I played baseball, so I got to go play baseball at Georgia Tech. Played there, met my wife there. She cheered at Georgia Tech, so we met through mutual friends. It's actually my roommate, her roommate. So that was pretty cool. We started dating my sophomore year. So we've been together 20 years now, married for 15. Yeah,
that's
thank
awesome.
you. Played baseball for 3 years at Georgia Tech. Got a chance to get drafted by the Braves, so it was cool. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan. No, there's not a ton of us here in Georgia, but I grew up a Georgia Tech fan. I got to play at Georgia Tech, and then I grew up a Braves fan, so I got drafted by the Braves. So it was kind of, like a dream come true.
Yeah.
Made it all the way to AAA with them, got invited to big league spring training a couple times with them. So I had a pretty cool professional career that kind of bounced around. I played for 4 different teams over 8 years. So after the Braves, I went to the Nationals for a year, then the Yankees for a year, and then I finished with the Reds my last 2 years. Same thing, kept kind of butting my head on that AAA ceiling. A couple big league camp opportunities with the Reds as well, but never crossed over to play in the big leagues during the regular season. So finished playing baseball in 2014, and that was very hard for me because I had one goal, and that was to play in the big leagues, and felt like a failure coming out of that. I still had college to finish because I got drafted after my junior year. So went back to school. And at that point, I was, again, I don't know how I wouldn't have labeled it this then, but looking back on it, I would say I was probably depressed at some level because I was angry. I was mad at God. I was frustrated. I was disappointed in myself because I didn't make it, in my eyes. But then that was a moment as I was going back to school, 2 of my former teammates were in a men's group that was meeting, in Smyrna. I joined that men's group at the end of 2014 and still am a part of it. And it's been a huge, huge part of my life. I mean, the guys in that group, there's probably 6 or 8 of us then. There's over 20 of us in that group now.
That's awesome.
So it's been huge part of my faith journey, but also just a huge part of my life. As I was leaving baseball, that kind of led to, we're talking about entrepreneurship as well, led to me getting into the industry I'm in now. So I knew towards the end of my baseball career that I wanted to do financial planning. I had a financial advisor that walked me through the stock market crash of 2008 and kept me from making any crazy decisions that would have really impacted me negatively. Mm-hmm. So I knew he had an impact on my life, but I also felt like something was missing in that world. So I knew I wanted to do financial planning. I left baseball wanting to work with athletes. I pursued that for a while and realized that there's a lot more that goes into that with agents and all the different things. Started at Northwestern Mutual after I finished college. Sorry, I get on tangents sometimes.
No, you're doing great, man. This is exactly where we want to be with all of
this. Okay, good. As I actually graduated from Georgia Tech in the summer of 2015, I did an internship that summer as well. I started college in the fall of 2003, and I graduated in the summer of 2015. And no, I'm not a doctor. Just a little gap there, but I did the internship at Northwestern Mutual and really fell in love with the people. There's a lot of faith-based people there. The guy who was mentoring me there, Roberto Valles, was a great guy who loved the Lord and just encouraged me. It was a little different than what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do more stock trading. My financial advisor was with Merrill Lynch, and so I thought that was what I wanted to do. As I went to Northwestern Mutual, it kind of opened my eyes to a bigger picture to financial planning. And so I did that for 3, 4, 5 years, and I just felt like it was too busy for me. Like it was constant, more and more and more. My commute to and from the office was too much. I literally found myself waking up at night like chest tight, like just was like stress was getting to me. So I was like, I can't keep doing this. So I knew I wanted to do something different. Thought I wanted to go start something on my own. My wife is very risk averse. So when I brought it up to her, her initial reaction was like, what do you mean? And I guess I get her initial reaction because when I told her for the first time, we were driving to an awards banquet that I was getting recognized as the top advisor under 5 years for our firm. So she's like, what do you mean you're having success? And I was like, I know, but it's literally killing me. And so I'll continue on that path, and then I'll get back to like the more important stuff, like my kids. But I don't want to get off on tangents too much. But as I'm going to this event, I'm just like I'm not excited about this. I just feel like I need to do something else. And so I prayed about it a lot. I went a whole nother year without, really making any changes. But as I was sitting at the end of that next year, planning what's the next 3 years, 5 years look like, I'm like, it's not here. And so I knew it was something different. So I prayed about it a lot. Talked to her again, and she's like, I get it. Like it's time. And so spent really the next 6 months to a year, like what is next, right? My friend that I mentioned that introduced him and his wife, they got married. They ended up getting married too. He was in the same industry. He had some success. Our personalities mesh really well. Things that he's good at and enjoys doing, I'm not good at and don't enjoy doing, and things I'm good at and enjoy doing, he's not as good at and doesn't enjoy doing. So thought it would be a really good fit. So there's a potential partnership there. I looked at joining another firm, faith-based firm. I go to a Kingdom Advisors conference down in Orlando, which is where I met another group. And I talked about that, and then I just talked about potentially just starting my own thing. And so prayed about it a lot. Ended up through actually a friend of mine, Kyle Ray, who was working with me at the time, was like, dude, I think you should just go do your own thing. He's like, I'll go help you. Like, let's just do it. And so prayed about it a lot, and it's like, okay, that's the next step. And so kind of towards the end of 2019, it was like, okay, this is it. Like, let's go start this own thing. And I feel like God's called me to do this. And so, okay, now what, right? So what is it going to look like? How do I build it out? What do I call, the company? And so prayed about that a lot. Landed on Shepherd Financial, and that was kind of a cool thing. It was everywhere I went, I was seeing Shepherd, was praying about it a lot. I don't know if you know the song Reckless Love.
Yeah,
where
sure.
Corey Asbury talks about leaving the 99. I kept hearing that song. Like, I think the fish is officially done now, which is sad.
Yeah.
But like anytime I would turn the radio on, I felt like that song was popping up. And so it was just like I was like, Shepherd has got to be it.
Yeah, it's amazing how God puts those things in our life, right? We're at that moment where we're asking for it, and sometimes when we're not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I 100%, because I had people, I was out asking people, seeking wisdom, and some people were like, well, name it like Hyde Financial Planning or whatever. I was like, well, I don't want my name to be on this. I feel like God's calling me to do this. Like, and I want this to be something after I'm no longer here. And so, that Shepherd name just kept popping up. And landed on Shepherd Financial, left my old company in January of 2020. Started Shepherd Financial. Well, had plans on starting Shepherd Financial in March of 2020, and anyone who was alive then and realizes that that's when COVID hit. So that kind of pushed things back a little bit, and ended up doing a soft launch in May. So that's kind of on the career side, how I got to where I'm at. I'm happy to talk more about that, but if you wanted me to,
no, that's
talk more
great.
about
I'm sitting here. I'm taking some notes for us to follow back up on, which is awesome. So tell us more about the family side too, and then we can kind of dive into both of those subjects.
Yeah, which I'd much prefer talking about my family, because love being a husband, love being a dad. But as I mentioned, my wife and I met in college. So we dated. It takes a special person to be a professional baseball player's girlfriend / wife. It is not. So people watch, Acuna and Riley and the guys in the big leagues. Like, that's a much different lifestyle, but that's still very tough, right?
Yeah.
Because you're gone all the time. But being a minor league baseball player's wife / girlfriend is very tough. So, I mean, Suzanne's amazing. She was always encouraging, always there. She didn't travel with me early in marriage. We missed like the first year or so. And like, we learned quickly that had to change, because I got sent to, when I left the Braves, I went to the Nationals, and I was in Syracuse, New York.
Wow.
And this was our second year of marriage, and I saw my wife twice in like 10 months.
Oh, my goodness.
And one of those times was me at the All-Star break driving from Syracuse to Atlanta through the night.
Wow.
I got home as she was leaving to go to work, so I slept while she was at work. She came home. We got to spend like a day and a half together, and then I had to drive back. So it was like 30 plus hours of driving for like maybe 30 hours of time together. But so that was tough. And she started traveling with me after that. And then just to expound on how hard it is to be, a wife of a minor league baseball player. When we got pregnant with our daughter, who's our oldest, Charlotte, she's 11 now. I was with the Reds at this point. So this is fast forward 2 years.
Yep.
But I started in Pensacola, which was their AA. Was having a good year. My wife was pregnant in the first trimester, so very sick. We had a beautiful place to stay in Pensacola, so we got lucky there. But we were on the 17th floor of this condo in Pensacola, and we had a little tiny dog that had to go to the bathroom a lot. I'm obviously at the ball field.
Yep.
So she's sick. She's having to take care of that. Well, I get sent up to AAA, which is great news, but we were on the road. And I was like, hey, my wife's pregnant. Can I go back and, help her pack up and meet the team? They're like, nope, we need you there tomorrow.
Oh, my gosh.
So they fly me to Lehigh Valley, whatever. It was in Pennsylvania. It was the Phillies AAA organization. So I fly to meet there. She has to pack up the car, pregnant, sick. She packs up the car by herself. Thankfully, there were some other wives there to help her. But then she drives from Pensacola to Louisville by herself. So I go... Then, we end up back in Louisville. We meet, we find a place to stay. And then, a month and a half later, I haven't given up a run, mind you, in this month and a half. So I go a month and a half without giving up a run in AAA, but it's minor league baseball. So they're like, hey, we got to make a move. Send me back to AA. We're on the road again. So I'm like, hey, my wife's even more pregnant and more sick now. Can I please go back? And they're like, nope, they need you there tomorrow. So they fly me to Montgomery. So she, again, sick, pregnant, has to pack the car up.
Oh, my gosh.
Drive. Thankfully, not all the way to Pensacola. She got to drive to Montgomery, but still from Louisville to Montgomery by herself with our little dog who has to stop and go to the bathroom. So it's like the life of a minor leaguer is not it's not glamorous, but the wife of a minor league wife is even less glamorous.
Yeah.
So she's amazing. But like I said, we had Charlotte, that season. I got to play another half season with Charlotte and Suzanne coming to my games, and good game, bad game. When I get to squeeze my little girl afterwards, I don't care if I gave up 100 runs or if I gave up none. Being able to see her after the game was awesome. And so, like I said, Charlotte is our oldest, and then in my son now is 7. So Noah, we had Noah a couple years later, so they're about 4 years apart. And yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. 11 and 7, or they like to say 7-11. As soon as they found out that was their ages, they're like, "Can we go to 7-11?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll make it happen." But I get to coach both of them in baseball and softball, and I get to coach them in basketball, and so it's just a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
7-11. That's a good gap. Mine are 6 and 4, so
yeah.
They're a little closer in age. And my older one's my boy versus my girl. She's the younger one.
Yeah.
She's
Do
the
they
princess,
fight a lot?
though.
Because I feel like it's a good gap, but I feel like there's so much difference. They fight more than maybe if it was closer. I don't know. It's an assumption.
I think part of that is my boy being a couple of years older is learning that what is it, that the testing the waters of how you push people and where their breaking point is, and he's learning that on his little sister. So that's a fun age to be in. But no, I mean they for as much as they fight, they are so sweet to each other and just love each other. So I'm thankful for that too.
Yeah, we get glimpses of that, but few and far between.
Man, there's a lot there, right? Like from your whole story, obviously there was a lot to go through. You have lived a very interesting life and a very busy life. I have questions kind of about all of it, right? So let's roll back and let's start on your faith journey, and then I'll ask you some questions. Some of the things that I talk to a lot of people about, and I think this is a subject that really interests me. Because I experience it myself a little bit, but not really, right? So the growing up in church, right? You talk about this profound experience, how many people in their life kind of lived without God for a long time, and then they have this moment, and then they choose to live with God, or walk with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that you missed out on something because you had this? It sounds weird. It's a weird frame of question. But do you feel like you missed out on something because of that? Like you grew up in church, but you were lucky enough. I'm going to phrase it that way, right?
Yeah.
You were lucky enough to have
100%.
God there with you through your whole story. And then people have these moments, and I had one, right? Like I grew up in church. I was Catholic. My dad was Jewish. But I grew up in the Catholic Church, so on and so forth. I stepped away from church for a long time, didn't do it. Then I did have a moment when my dad was sick. Jesus met me in the shower, and I did have this profound experience that led me on my walk with Jesus. But I leave that to you, right? Do you feel like you missed something because you didn't have this profound moment, or do you look at it from that other perspective of you were lucky enough to have God in your life that whole time?
Yeah, I used to feel like I was missing out. Right, because I tried to be the good boy, and not get in trouble and not do the things. I used to think that way. It's not fair. It seems silly to say, but I was jealous. Right, well, they got to do all that crazy stuff, and now they can they're just good. I used to struggle with that. I really did. If I'm being honest, but like I said, as I've dove deeper into really the Sermon on the Mount, right, it's all a heart issue, right.
Yeah.
Jesus said, you've heard it said, you shall not murder, but if you're angry at a brother in your heart, you're essentially committing the same sin, right? Exactly. And so, anger is something I've struggled with a lot in my life. And so, the more I've dug into the Sermon on the Mount and just realizing that it's a heart issue, and was just as lost as they were, I may have, because I grew up in a Christian home, I may have learned that, okay, I don't take it outside of certain bounds, but now I'm thankful for it, right? God protected me by putting good parents in my life who introduced me to Jesus at an early age, and so, but yes, I did struggle with it, especially college years, right? not saying I was a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination during those years,
Yeah.
but yes, I used to struggle with that. I used to be, weirdly jealous of people who had those experiences, and then they're fine, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're good. But now I get it. Like, that's God's heart, right? He wants everyone to come home. The prodigal son, like, he wants us all to come home. He wants us to be with him, to have relationship with him. So, like, and I want that for everyone now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. I totally understand that part of it, right? I actually lead a group of college ministry through Woodstock City for TLR.
Yeah.
And I'm working on. We're going to do a study through the Sermon on the Mount here coming up that I'm leading, and so I'm in it right now, and I totally understand. A couple of weeks ago I was struggling with that myself. It's like you said, it's anger. It's this anger of like. Why this? Why that? And you look at people and you get frustrated, and that's our human nature, right? Our nature is just to be frustrated, and then you try to be like, man, I just want to be like Jesus, right? And then you read the Sermon on the Mount, and the more that's really helped me in just these last few weeks, like guiding through that. I can understand the frustration part of it, but it is a testament of just how good our God is, right?
Yeah.
That like the barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah.
Just love, be kind, and have faith in Jesus, and you can turn that new leaf. And then once you get there, there's lots of other scripture that backs up you gotta walk that path now, right? Just try to stick to it, but it is.
The thing, it's a hard issue, right? Like, again, I grew up thinking I got to do all these things to earn God's favor, right? Like, I have to not do this. Actually, as not do things to earn God's favor versus do things. Some do things, but it's like we've already earned God's favor. Like if we can view ourselves the way God views us through Jesus, like we would live with so much freedom, and our hearts would be in a place where we want this outpouring of love, right? Jesus told his disciples, they will recognize you by the way you love one another, right? Not by how good you behave, or that you don't drink or you don't, like those things. Like, that's not what he said, right? It's how we love one another. And so, I think if we genuinely get to that place where we accept the grace and our heart's in a good place, that outpouring is going to come, versus us feeling like we have to do it because I'm a Christian. I have to do these things, right? It should come from a place of love and come from a place of gratitude, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so much of that, right? Salvation obviously starts with Jesus, but then finishes in the mirror. And I think people lose track of that so often. Like you're saying, it's like, man, if you don't worry about fixing or somebody, work on you. And once you get that right, which is, it's going to be your whole life. That's a moving threshold of where you're going to be able to do that. But if you can work on you and remember, like, hey man, it all starts with me. I read lots of stuff. There's this guy Jocko Willink. He talks about extreme ownership, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, right?
Jocko.
My podcast isn't nearly as intense as Jocko's. Sorry, but that's an example of that in faith, right? Extreme ownership in your own life.
Yeah.
If you take captive your thoughts, your behavior, your love, your kindness, the rest of it is it's all uphill from there, right?
Yeah.
For Jesus loves you anyway, even in your imperfection.
Yeah.
And if you could learn to love others and work through that and fix or at least try to take hold of what you have there and your thoughts captive, then it makes it a lot easier to navigate those waters moving forward.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and something my men's group's been going through a lot the last year and a half is just spiritual disciplines. Like, I feel like that's something that really isn't talked about. I don't remember talking about a lot growing up, and I feel like it's not talked a lot about in the church to begin with, right? But like, Jesus was fully God, is fully God, but he was also fully human, and he showed us what it looked like to live a perfect life. Yeah. Right? So what did Jesus do? And he told us to follow him, right? So if we're supposed to follow him, we should probably do what he did, which then leads to the outflowing that we just talked about, right? So if we're doing silence and solitude, if we're praying, we're fasting, we're doing, observing Sabbath, it's just something I need to do a better job of. But
Amen.
right, like,
I had that conversation with my son yesterday.
Yeah, but like, if we're truly following Jesus, then Jesus should show out of us a lot more, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and when we're doing that also too, right? We ask for so many things in our lives and pray. Like, when we're living life that way, it makes it easier, in my opinion, right? It makes it easier for him to come to us and say, hey, I need you for this, right? I'm going to assign you this task. If you have your place and you're finding your way, it just, not that he loves you any more or any less, right? But you're more prepared for the assignment. It's like playing ball, right? If you're in good shape, you're more prepared for that phone call to move up or or change positions or whatever it may be to be the next one up. So I think that's really interesting. That brings me to my next thing. Bring the baseball analogy actually back around.
Yeah.
So you ended your baseball career, right? We talked a lot about that. What brought the career to an end for baseball?
They stopped paying me.
That's an easy decision.
Yeah, I mean, so my last year was, so 2013 was the best year of my career. I went 39 innings without giving up a run between AA and AAA. So basically from May to September, I didn't give up a run. Like middle of May to September, I didn't give up a run. Didn't get an opportunity. Like I'd hoped I was going to get a September call-up. Didn't get an opportunity. Going to that off season, I thought my phone would be ringing off the hook because I was left-handed. I threw pretty hard for a lefty. Not anymore. Everybody throws crazy hard now. But like back then, I threw kind of hard for a left-handed pitcher. And I just, had my best year of my career. I finished with a sub-2 ERA for the year. And I started this season with like giving up 6 runs in like an inning and a third. So like I started way behind the 8 ball.
Wow.
So like basically the rest of my season was great. The only big league camp offer I got was with the Reds, which is the team I was with. So I took it, had a great big league camp, was one of 4. There's 4 guys for 2 spots at the end of spring training, and I was one of the 4. We were competing. 2 of those guys were on the roster. So for anyone that isn't familiar with the way Major League Baseball works, you have to be on the 40-man roster to be added to the 25-man roster or make the big league team out of spring training. 2 of those guys were on the roster. There's things called options. I'm not going to get into all the details today, but basically, if you run out of options and they don't put you on the roster, anybody can come take you. So there was one guy who was out of options. Basically, the 2 guys that made the team are the 2 guys who were on the roster. And I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, right? We all pitched really well in spring training, so it made sense for the Reds to take the 2 guys who were on the roster. And one of them ended up, having a fantastic year. I started the season great, and then I had an outing in the middle end of May, where I gave up 6 runs in a third of an inning. I was 29 at the time. I was on a minor league free agent contract, so most guys in the minor leagues make no money, and I was making pretty decent money. I'll say it, whatever, so $12,000 a month, right?
Yeah. Which
is about 10 times what the normal $1,250, $1,500 a month is what a normal minor leaguer makes. So for you guys out there that think professional baseball players are making a lot of money, they're not unless they're in the big leagues or they got a big signing bonus. So, it doesn't seem like a lot of money when they're paying guys $30 million a year, but they don't want to waste money on minor leaguers. I was 29 at the time, which is old for baseball. That seems funny to say too, but
well, no, that's what I was thinking, right? Too.
Yeah.
In all fairness, I was like, 29, you're getting up there anyway.
Yeah. So I was old for baseball, and I had no big league experience. So, that was All-Star break. They released me. I signed with an independent team in Somerset, New Jersey. So played for a month after that to just try and get picked back up. And once I didn't get an offer, I was like, I'm going to go back and finish school. I still had 3 semesters left, so I went back, started school, and I was done mentally. Like I was like, I'm not playing anymore. I'm done. My agent calls me in December, and he's still a really good friend of mine. He actually coaches over at Relentless now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Miles Shoda, shout out. But he's unbelievable, man. We became a really good friend. I met him when I was in high school, so I've known him. Let's see, I'll be 40 Friday, I think. So.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Which will be probably, this will come out after my birthday, but either way. So I've known Miles for, longer than half of my life. But he calls me in December, I haven't touched a baseball, haven't worked out, had no desire to. And he's like, hey, the Rangers want you to come work out in Arizona. And I was like, well, I don't want to. I was done. Then my wife's like, well, would you regret more going and it not being worth it, or not going and never knowing. And I was like, why'd you have to say that? You're so smart.
Smart lady. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started training. I was way behind the 8 ball, but I started training, and then the Diamondbacks wanted to look at me too. So I was like, okay, well, there's 2 teams. I was going to have to pay my own way out there. So I'm training. And for me, every off season, my conditioning was basketball. I loved basketball. It was an easy way for me to stay in shape. I hated running, but basketball didn't feel like running. So I'd go play several times a week, for a couple hours, a day. So I'm getting back into basketball because I was very out of shape. I'm starting to play. Well, I'm playing one day, and I'd never had any injuries playing in my 8 seasons playing. Every off season I played. I played in college. Coach Hall probably wouldn't like me saying that, but a lot of us would go play. But here I am playing, and I come down for a rebound on a guy's foot, turn my ankle, my left ankle, which is I'm left-handed, so that's my leg I drive off of.
Yeah.
And it swelled up like a beach ball, black and blue. And so I'm like, man, this is it. This is the nail in the coffin. This is the sign. I mean, I was praying like, God, should I even pursue this? Give me a sign. Got a pretty good sign, but I was like, you know what? I'm still going to try. My friend, Troy Jones is a really good friend of mine. He rehabbed my Tommy John, so I didn't even talk about that, but I did have Tommy John surgery.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When I was playing early in my career. Troy rehabbed me. He works over at a Rapid Performance in Woodstock, and Peachtree Orthopedics, I think, is the company he's with. But either way, he's a good friend. And I was like, hey, man, I need you to get my ankle. Let's see what we can do. And I tried, and I wrapped it up, took some ibuprofen, tried to throw a bullpen like a week before I was supposed to go out. And, I couldn't even break 80. I just couldn't push off my leg. I tried. I'm, trying everything I can. My body, literally wouldn't let me. And so I was like, yep, that's it. So that was the official end of my baseball career.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like God gave you that sign that you were looking for.
Yes.
And, you have pursued so much since then.
Mm-hmm.
God has obviously been in that story the whole time.
Yeah.
For you, right, mentally, that was a definitive ending of that, the baseball career.
Yeah.
How are you, where were you mentally and spiritually in that moment, right, when all that kind of went down?
Yeah, I hated baseball when I finished playing. The business side of baseball it's nuts. Anyone that's been through it can tell you, and people have better experiences, worse experiences, but I don't know. I was very frustrated with how things went. The business side of baseball, you're just a piece upon, like I said, I told you the story about my wife and being pregnant, and
nope, she's got to handle it.
A human, someone that cared about the human would be like, hey, your wife's pregnant. Yeah. That we can make it a day without one of the 7 bullpen pitchers in this town. You can go help your wife and then come back and meet us. But it's a business, right? So it's a business to them. They've got all these moving pieces, and I get it, right? I've never run that business. There's a lot of minor league baseball players, and they're trying to navigate who goes where. But at the end of it, it's just a business. And some organizations are better at taking care of people than others. But yeah, I literally hated baseball when I finished playing. I couldn't pay me to watch it. Wanted nothing to do with it. Didn't want to talk about it. And actually, it wasn't until my daughter, who she did dance and gymnastics and all the things, and I thought, if you'd have told 20-year-old me that you're going to have a daughter that does dance and gymnastics, I would have been like, oh, that's going to be terrible. I loved it. I loved watching my little girl dance, man. I'd get emotional watching her up there, twirl around and stuff. But then she stopped doing dance, which actually was sad to me. I never thought I would have been sad not going to dance recitals, but I loved watching her dance. And then she did gymnastics. She had a great coach, but then her coach left, and her new coach was a college kid that was, checking her phone while she's supposed to be coaching her. And so she didn't want to do that. So we were like, hey, you got to play a team sport. Just from, I don't care what it is, basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, whatever, you need to play a team sport. Just, there's so many things you can learn on a team sport. And I was like, you don't play basketball? She's like, no. What about soccer? No. And then I was like, what about baseball or softball? And she's like, no. I was like, well, what if I coach you? She's like, yes. And so I was like, all right, let's go. That brought back my love of the game. Because I knew, here's my daughter. She's never showed an interest in a sport before. And I was like, I just got to make this fun. So like I've got a group of, she was 7 at the time, so I'm coaching 6, 7, 8-year olds, girls in softball. And I'm like, I don't care if we win a game. Let's just make this fun.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset going in. It's like, I'm just going to make this fun. And as I mentioned earlier, like we met a great group of people who we're still friends and play with those people, several of those people now. But coaching it, making it fun, I was like, this is what the game is, right? It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be out here with your friends. And so that brought my love back for the game. And now coaching both my kids, it's awesome. So, yeah.
How much of your story, right, like as a player in the past, did your kids know or like understand about when they started playing sports like that?
Yeah, I mean, they knew. I don't talk about it a lot around the house. Not something I'm like, hey, did you know your dad? Like, no. But it's funny. One of the girls that I coach, and her dad's a really good friend of mine. Her name's Maggie. I called her the wrong name at our first practice. She corrected me immediately, so I started calling her Mad Dog. Her dad, Zach's, helped me coach, and just great. They've become really good close friends with them. But the second practice, she comes up and she goes, "You're famous." I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, "I know you're famous." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "We looked you up on Google." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I know you played professional baseball." So like she started telling all the kids on the team. So then Charlotte started asking me questions. She's like, "What does this mean?" And I'm like, they at some point learned, but like it wasn't until Maggie started calling me out in front of the whole team that my kids really had any understanding of what that was. And I mean, like I said, I didn't like baseball, so we didn't watch the Braves. Like the Braves weren't on TV in our house. Because I didn't want to watch baseball. But after that, I was like, we watched. She's like, "So you played for," I was like, "Well, I didn't play there, but I played in that organization." So just explaining the difference between major league and minor league. But they came to learn, what I did, but I still don't know anything, right, to my kids. Like I'll try and teach them something hitting. They're like, "I know how to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, well,
I love that.
Let somebody else teach you."
I'm glad to know, because I actually don't know anything, and I still try to teach my kids, and he also feels like I don't know anything. So it's good to know that that's agnostic in that
universal.
standpoint, right?
Universal.
Like,
No kid's parent knows anything about coaching them in anything.
No, that's awesome. Did your kids have aspirations, right? Obviously I know they're young, your son plays 8U, but like does he have aspirations like, man, I'm gonna grow up and like I want to be a ball player, or is it just fun for him? Like
I'd say with Charlotte it's more fun. She loves being out there with her friends. She's had to work a little bit harder, like the natural just body movements didn't come as natural to her, but she's made a ton of progress and she's grown a lot. But for her, it's like she loves being out there with her friends, which is again what youth sports is all about, right? There's been times where she said
sane people say,
right, and there's been times where she said she wants to play in college, and then she changes her mind. Right now, basketball is her favorite sport, but I think if you asked her, "Do you want to play?" Past high school or anything like that, right now, I don't know that she'd be. If she said yes, it'd be kind of like a maybe kind of deal. But Noah, my son, like, whatever season it is. So, we're in basketball season. So right now he wants to be playing the NBA. Baseball season, he'll want to play professional baseball. He said he wanted to play football. He wants to play soccer. He's going to be the next Ronaldo, so yes, for him, for sure. He definitely has that aspirations like I did as a kid to play professional sports.
No, that's awesome. It was funny. I had a conversation with my son yesterday. We were on our way to baseball practice. Excuse me. We were on our way to baseball practice, and he, we were talking about just his attitude, right? Like, just good attitude. That's the most important thing, right? Like, my son, same. Like, it comes pretty well naturally to him. Like, he's pretty good. But like ego gets in the way, I think, sometimes, especially being a young man. But I'm just like, man, attitude is really just the most important thing. And he goes, I was like, you have a good attitude. And then we started, somehow the conversation drove into like going to college. I was like, you work hard. Maybe one day, I was like, you could go to college and for free because you could play baseball. And he goes, college is free anyway. I'm like, no, college is not free. But it wasn't that like I was trying to give him this false aspiration, like you're going to go to college and play ball. It was just this idea of like mindset and attitude and growth through all of those things. And if you love playing, and the conversation actually stemmed from, I was like, do you want to try, playing basketball or football or anything else? He's like, no, I just want to play baseball, which I love. I'm like, but if that's the case, like you need to work on the mental just as much as you need to work on the physical part of it. So.
It's hard, man. I wrestle with those things all the time, but like I keep having to tell myself, your son's 6, but my son's 7. I'm like, he's just 7. Like, what was I doing as a 7-year-old? Because it's like we know, like it takes hard work, takes all these things. I'm like, me as a 7-year-old, was I like working or was I just out playing? Like I just played outside all the time, right? And my son does that, but to your point, like regardless of if they're going to go work and hit off the tee. Attitude, effort, like those things when you're out there, like you can control those. My
son had the misfortune of one of his coaches telling him he was the best kid on the team at one point, and it was just all kind of downhill from there. So we're still recovering from that. I'm like, man, I appreciate what you were trying to do there. That was a terrible thing to say to a 6-year-old with an ego. So
it's hard finding the balance, right? Like with my son, like he's very confident, and it's like, I don't want to crush his confidence because confidence is important in all walks of life, right? Whether it's sports or business or whatever you're doing, confidence is important. But humility is also important, and hard work and all the things. So it's like, but again, he's 7. Lee, he's 7. It's just a constant reminder.
Same thing. Yeah, no, I totally understand and agree with you on that. So let's go back. You talked about you were in school and you started a men's group. Back kind of the faith journey things, right? You were in school, you started a men's group, you're still in this men's group. What does that evolution look like over the last, however, I don't even know however many years that has been growing?
Well, I joined a men's group. If I said I started it, I
No, you may have said join.
It was started by a good friend of mine who he played professional baseball, and it's funny. It started as a baseball player, an accountant, and an attorney were the 3 guys that started it. But by the time I joined, it was pretty much those attorney and the accountant and then athletes. So there was a guy who played football at Auburn and then a bunch of baseball guys. But yeah, I joined it, and I want to say it was the end of 2014. It may have been early 2015. My friend invited me back. At that point, I felt very like I didn't belong to that group as a bunch of Bible nerds. And it was great because I would just go sit quietly and listen to them. We'd go through different books of the Bible, and like they were saying stuff that like, I'm like, where did you come up with this stuff? And I think at that point in my life, I had read through the Bible once in a year, but it was like a checklist thing that I did during one baseball season. I think it was when I had Tommy John and I was hurt. So I was like, what else am I going to do? But I wasn't reading my Bible consistently. But at that point, the group was very much a knowledge-based group. And it stayed that way for a while. And I got a little bit more comfortable, and we added a couple more guys. But it's been cool how God's just brought different people to the group. And one funny story I'll tell, there's a guy, he showed up, we met in the coffee shop in Smyrna, Chattahoochee Coffee. It's right there on the river, beautiful place. But this guy shows up after we'd finished one day. We'd meet at 7:00 every Thursday, and this guy came over. He's like, "Hey, like, what are you guys doing?" And he's like, "We're like Bible study." And he's like, "Oh, hey, can I come next week? I just moved here from California. I'm in movie production and looking to plug into something like this." The guy's name was actually Christian, which I thought was ironic. Well, the next week, Christian doesn't show up, but this guy named Tim does show up. He's a young guy. Like most of us, like I'm about to be 40. I'm probably middle of the pack, younger guy. We've got several guys who are older than me. Well, Tim's, I think he's 22, 23 at the time, so he's significantly younger than the rest of us. He's like, "Hey, my buddy Christian said you guys are meeting. Is this the right place?" And we're like, "Yeah." Well, he's been a part of the group ever since.
I love that.
Been a great addition. But I would say up until COVID, the group was very much a knowledge-based group. We started to grow a little bit more, like, diving deeper on some personal stuff. But it was very knowledge-focused. And then COVID hit, and one of the guys' dads passed away just before that, and the guy's mom passed away, and then COVID hit. And so, everything's shut down. We can't go meet in the coffee shop. So we start meeting in people's homes. And then, which that just brings more people in because we're, inviting people into our homes, basements or whatever else. And it shifted right around 2020. And we started we still would dive deep into scripture, but it was like, okay, let's be real, guys. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. And it turned into where we became a lot more vulnerable. We started sharing what's actually going on in our lives, and just being open and honest. And yeah, man, we were 6 or 8 at that point. We have a group text. I want to say there's 21, 22 of us on that group text. My group, we do a beach trip every year. We're in our 5th year. We just had our 5th year this past year, and we had 17 guys, go down there, and it's a great trip, man. It's we stop and play golf on the way down. So we stop in Dothan, Alabama, and we dress up in crazy outfits, and we have mustaches, and it's hilarious. And we play at Dothan National Golf Club or whatever, and the people there they wait for us to come in. I mean, if you go to my Facebook page, and you have to scroll down because I probably post more than I should on there, but crazy outfits.
We'll edit a picture in.
We'll send you a group photo. But yeah, it's mustaches, crazy outfits.
That's awesome.
And they love it. But yeah, it's just a good weekend getaway where we can go, just have fellowship, share meals together and do some Bible study. But it's a really great group that's meant a lot to me and grown me a lot in my faith and my walk with Jesus.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. You talk about that school, and you talk about there being sports guys and other people. But one of my other questions and the notes that I had taken here was about faith in sports. You grew and spent a lot of time in sports. What does that look like in the sports world? Do you see a lot of that, faith and fellowship in sports? I mean, obviously anybody on teams, right, shares a lot of that. So I was curious to know, for the other people who are listening, right, what does that faith in the sports world look like?
I think a lot of it's surface level, and I would have said mine for a while was pretty surface level too. But yeah, I think the last couple years of my career, so it started with the Yankees. So 2012 with the Yankees, I had a really great chaplain, and we had a really good group of guys. So we would have chapel every Sunday, but then we got to where we would have Bible studies on road trips, and that was really cool. I mean, by the end of the year, I think on a normal home chapel day, which is, it's a Sunday, we play day games usually on Sundays, and, it's a 10, 15 minutes, after batting practice or something like that.
Yeah.
But we'd have, 14 to 18 of the 25 guys would come. So I'd never been on a team like that before. And then my last 2 years with the Reds, I would try and lead Bible studies and stuff like that. And, depending on the team, some teams, it just really depends team to team. There's some guys that are like, hey, I want this in my life. And other guys are they're not anti, but they're like, it's not something I want to do right now. But yeah, I would say it's there. But it depends team to team. And a lot of it depends on, is there someone kind of leading that? And It's one of the things that I noticed early in my career. I wasn't, so I felt like it wasn't there. But then as I felt like God was calling me to step into some of these roles, it was there, right? So sometimes God was like, hey, someone step up and do something. But yeah, it's there, but not super prominent, I would say.
I would say it feels like over the last several years, last couple of years, in society, we're seeing kind of a resurgence of faith, but also in sports, you're seeing a lot more people being more open about their faith. Yeah.
I think I always feel, I don't want to say it not in a negative way, but I think COVID, there was a lot of bad that happened with COVID, right? But I think a lot of good, God can make good from bad, right? A lot of good came out of that because it challenged a lot of people to look internally, to think outside of maybe what they thought this life had for them. And I think that because of that, it's if I know for me, going into COVID, I realized that I was way too reliant on other people to grow me spiritually. And it caused me to look internally, to realize I need to take more of a role in my relationship with Jesus than just waiting for someone to do it on Sunday or Thursday mornings for me with my men's group. And I think that happened to a lot of people. And so, I think a lot of athletes are in a place where they're like, they've seen God work in their life and they've taken that step and they're a lot more open to share it. So, you watch with, I'm not an Ohio State or Notre Dame fan, but like going into that national championship game, both teams were talking about it a lot, and both teams talked about it after. I heard Jalen Hurts talking yesterday after the Super Bowl about his faith and mentioning Jesus, and so it definitely seems like it's becoming more prominent, and maybe we're just hearing it more. But yeah, I think guys are being more confident in their relationship with Jesus and wanting to tell people about it.
No, I love to see that. I do,
Yeah.
and it's good for especially like folks like us, right, who have younger kids who play sports, and them getting to see that too, and just another area of their life where they have people who they look up to, and seeing that reaffirmation in Christ and that spirituality, and like being okay with sharing that just in another place in their life, which is I think great.
Yeah.
Man, listen, we try to stick our episodes like 45 minutes an hour. It has been an amazing conversation with you so far, and I know our viewers are going to love it. There's so much more that we have still left, so I would love to invite you back if you'd be willing to come back, and we could wrap this up on a part 2 episode.
I'd love to.
That's awesome, man.
Fun.
So one of the things I ask all of my guests is if we could please just pray us out as we wrap up the episode.
Yeah. Me?
Yes,
okay.
please.
Yeah, happy to.
Absolutely.
Heavenly Father, God, I just thank you for Andrew. Thank you for what you've called him to do. Thank you for him answering that prayer. And God, I pray that you use Andrew in this podcast just to reach, you know who it's going to reach, God. It could be one person, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. But God, I just pray that this podcast draws people to you and brings you glory, which is the ultimate goal. God, I pray that you continue to bless Andrew and his family. And just pray that you be with us as we leave until we can come back again next time. God, we thank you and we love you. In Jesus' name.
Amen. In Jesus' name. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Cool. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Always Rising podcast. You can find today's episode and all previous full video episodes on YouTube and Facebook. Full audio-only episodes are also available on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Thank you again for your love and support, and we hope to see you again next time.